Are you ready, Gladys?
Yes.
We can hear you.
Wonderful. Good morning, everybody, and I apologise for the technical hiccup. Can I acknowledge our party president, Philip Ruddick, of course, our state director, Chris Stone, and all of our party members. We know what a difficult time this has been, and I want to thank all of you for the way in which you've contributed to branch meetings, conference meetings, and other party events during these challenging times. And it's been a wonderful level of support and comfort knowing our branch members are still rallying around us as elected representatives during this difficult time. And I wanted to acknowledge all of you from across the state for still being part of our Liberal family and still making sure your views, your feedback and your advice has been reaching us at the very highest levels, and I can't thank you enough. Can I also please thank all of my parliamentary colleagues? I know most of them are online this morning. They've been texting me with feedback and questions all through the morning. Recently, the state budget passed both houses of parliament yesterday, and I want to in particular acknowledge the upper house colleagues who've literally been sitting until midnight for a number of weeks to make sure we pass through vital legislation, including the state budget and also the energy bill, which is monumental reform, which went through the parliament just this week. So the upper house colleagues, who often aren't acknowledged as much as they should be, can I please express in a heartfelt way on behalf of the people of New South Wales that your tenacity and your work ethic has ensured that the government's legislation has passed both houses. And to my colleagues in the lower house, we know how much our communities have relied on us, how much they've relied on the information we're providing them, how much they've relied on us on providing information through Service New South Wales and other state government entities to really support them during these difficult times. And whilst today, most of us are thinking and stressed about COVID, we can't forget that just over a year ago, we were going through the most catastrophic bushfires our state had ever acknowledged or ever seen. And I will acknowledge many of you who live in those communities who are still recovering. I recently did a tour of some regional parts of the state where the fires had come through, and the community is still raw and still traumatised by that. And I just wanted to acknowledge that many of you live in those communities. And please know that whilst we're dealing with the pandemic, the New South Wales government is still committed to ensuring the rebuilding process and also supporting communities through mental health and other provision, because for many people, the reality of what occurred a year ago and just over a year ago is still raw, and I just wanted to make that acknowledgement. Can I also, again, acknowledge all of my ministerial and parliamentary colleagues who've been directly involved in fighting off COVID-19 from New South Wales. And I think the reason why New South Wales has been successful is because of the team effort. And I want to thank the Prime Minister for his leadership role of the nation, his role in National Cabinet. It's certainly given me the confidence to be able to lead with courage, because unlike some other state leaders, or unlike some other state colleagues, I'm very proud of the fact that in New South Wales we've acknowledged not just the massive health requirements of keeping our public first and foremost safe from the COVID, from the virus, but also acknowledging we need to keep people in jobs. We need to keep livelihoods. We need to make sure that people are able to live as freely as possible during this time. And I hope as members you feel that in New South Wales we do have the right balance. And I want to acknowledge in particular the Health Minister, Brad Hazzard. I don't think anyone would have envisaged being the Health Minister during a pandemic, but certainly he's been leading our efforts in that regard. And our success on the health front hasn't just occurred overnight, as members would appreciate, but it's been built on years of record funding. Since we came to government in 2011, we made sure that health received record funding. We made sure our public health team, led ably by Dr. Kerry Chant, is not just well-resourced, but has a direct line to the Minister and to me in terms of the advice that she provides. And I'm incredibly proud of the effort across the state. And mostly, our citizens have responded so positively by making sure that they're taking the advice we're providing, and that's allowed us to ease restrictions and move forward. And of course, as the Prime Minister noted, we don't want to have a single restriction in place a day longer than we need to, and we're actually in the process now, given we have had a number of days of no community transmission. We are definitely, and I've been saying this publicly, so it's no scoop announcement or anything like that, but we are looking forward in the very near future to be able to ease restrictions in a whole range of areas where people are currently feeling slightly inhibited. Can I also acknowledge that when we're keeping people in jobs and we're making sure the economy is as strong as possible in New South Wales, we must acknowledge the efforts of our Treasurer, Dom Perrottet. He recently delivered the state budget, And as you can all appreciate, if you run a business or if you run an organisation, the effect of the pandemic has been devastating, and that's similarly impacted our budget. We were in a strong budget position before COVID, and our economy was strong. But what we've done is make sure that we're trying to keep the economy as strong as possible. So we have taken a hit in our budget. We do have deficits now. However, unlike other states, New South Wales has a pathway to get back into the black, and that's something we're incredibly proud of. Our budget focuses on jobs. Our infrastructure pipeline of $107 billion over the next 4 years means that whether you're in the bush or the city or our regions, you can expect to have those schools, those hospitals, those transport projects, which are vital. And in many cases, we've been able to bring forward the smaller and medium-sized projects to make sure we're creating jobs in every corner of the state. And this has been positively reflected by the recent unemployment figures that came out. Even though 5.5 million people live in Greater Sydney, and Sydney has been really adversely impacted by the hospitality sector and tourism and many other services because of no international travel, we saw unemployment drop in New South Wales to the lowest level in the nation. We dropped by 0.7 on the previous month, which is the biggest drop of any state. And I want to commend my team, because what we've managed to do is keep our economy open. We fought to have no borders. We're allowing New Zealanders in without quarantine. We're really pushing ourselves to make sure we keep that jobs growth, we return jobs. And in fact, we saw the return of 70 or 80,000 jobs in just the last month back into our economy. And that's a trend we desperately want to see continue. I'm grateful that the federal government has provided support to all the states and all our citizens through JobKeeper. But we know that JobKeeper finishes in March, and for that reason, we're making sure as a state, through the efforts of our Treasurer and all the Cabinet, that we're focused on keeping jobs, retaining jobs and growing jobs. And through Minister Stokes' Planning Acceleration Program, we've been able to bring forward 100 projects which would otherwise taken longer to approve. And I must mention Minister Dominello and his team at Service New South Wales. They've really helped us digitise a lot of what we're doing, but also get information out to communities. And fortunately for our citizens, when we announce a grant to small business or a grant or vouchers to our community members, we're able to get it out the door within days, because Service New South Wales has become such an efficient way of providing that direct support and contact to our communities. But where COVID is concerned, we're very much focused on how much can we push to give our citizens the greatest level of freedom, to give our businesses the greatest level of operation and continuity. And can I say to all of you, members, as we know, part of the values which underpin our Liberal Party, our wonderful Liberal Party, is to support businesses, to support entrepreneurship. And I'm very proud of the fact that during the pandemic, we had business continuity in many areas. Unlike other states, we've kept all of our borders open, but for Victoria recently, and even that we've been able to open. And we've also made sure that construction continues. We've not stopped. We've not stopped because we appreciate how important it is to deal with the health side of the virus, but also obviously the economic consequences. And that's a policy, strategy and direction will continue. And when people say to me, when are you going to start your COVID recovery plan? I say we've already started it by providing billions of dollars of stimulus, payroll tax to our businesses, but also having that business certainty. We are already in recovery phase. And I've been heartened by the number of businesses from around Australia, but also from overseas, who are contacting my government directly to inquire about how they can either set up shop here or increase their footprint, which is great news for jobs. And that is because people acknowledge New South Wales has done well in managing the virus, but also in supporting businesses do what they do best, and supporting businesses in either returning employees or growing jobs, which is really important. And that's why, through the Treasurer's efforts, our payroll tax cuts, our incentives for no payroll tax on employees of 30 or more that you hire over the next couple of years will make a big difference to increasing that footprint. But interestingly, while Sydney has been going through that difficult time, our regions at the moment are going through a bit of a boom. And I want to acknowledge all of our members from the bush. The drought's broken in many parts of the state. There are bumper harvests. There's infrastructure and project delivery going on across the regions, which is creating jobs. And so whilst we've seen some industries very disproportionately and heavily impacted, we've seen the regions actually grow. And because we weren't able to go to any other states, we've seen tourism in our regions actually go above record levels. Many tourism operators I've spoken to, or businesses I've spoken to in the regions, are commenting about how they're experiencing pre-Christmas type vacancy rates or no vacancy rates at this time, which is very, very positive. Members, I also wanted to acknowledge the fact that not only are we continuing to deal with COVID in the way we have, but we're also using this opportunity to reform. Less red tape, better access to services by our citizens. We're using this time to take on board things that we think we can keep post-COVID and actually assist us in being a stronger, more efficient government, providing better services to our communities and better access to services. And one example I'll bring to your attention is e-health or telehealth. And we've actually done a survey of all our patients across the state who use e-health or telehealth. And during the lockdown and subsequently since, many patients have actually said they prefer that with chronic conditions, prefer to use that system of healthcare rather than have to physically go in for a regular checkup. And so we know that option isn't for everybody, but it's just one example of how COVID has really pushed the way we provide services to our citizens and how there are some things which we can actually adopt as permanent policy moving forward. But I want to acknowledge, members, please be assured that each and every one of my ministerial and parliamentary colleagues, no matter what responsibility they have in our team in the New South Wales government, are already instituting reforms to improve what we can do during and post-COVID to make the life of our citizens, the quality of life of our citizens as positive as they can be. And as you know, the New South Wales government is also not missing the opportunity as part of the budget process. The Treasurer recently put out a discussion paper on tax reform regarding stamp duty and land tax. I know many members are interested in these issues. Please have a read of that document, which is publicly available, and please provide us with your feedback. I think it's important when you're considering major reform that you give your members, the party, the public opportunity to give you that feedback, and this is an opportune time for us to do that. So I would encourage all of you to participate in that debate. And Mr. President and Mr. Stone, if it's okay with you, I wanted to end my comments in relation to our Liberal Party values and acknowledge some members who are no longer with us, and then leave more time for questions, as I know many members have already indicated they would like to ask my team and I questions about our various actions that we're taking during this time. But as our Prime Minister highlighted, and can I stress again my admiration and absolute commitment to the Prime Minister and his efforts during the last 12 months. His leadership of our nation has been outstanding. He's guided our nation through very difficult National Cabinet agenda items, keeping all the states together on the same page, but also providing us with vital health advice on a national level, which then we've been able to reconcile at a state level and make those appropriate decisions at a state level. And where appropriate, we've tried to make sure that we support the Commonwealth's efforts. As you know, New South Wales has been doing more than our fair share in relation to quarantine. We're welcoming back 3,000 Australians every single week through our quarantine system, more than triple what any other state is doing. And we do that because not only are we citizens of New South Wales, we're citizens of Australia. And just as the Prime Minister has supported us with JobKeeper, we support our federal Commonwealth government in relation to those quarantine matters. And I'm very proud that with the support of our health officials, of course, but also led admirably by our New South Wales Police Force, our quarantine system is stressed. We've got 5,000 people in quarantine at any one time, but we've demonstrated our capacity to manage things well, allow Australians to come back home, keep the economy going, but also keep the virus at bay. As the Prime Minister noted, since our last meeting, we very sadly farewell John Fay, an outstanding Liberal and outstanding Australian who served both his state and nation with distinction, and it was a wonderful honour to celebrate his life but also spend time with his family and acknowledging his contribution. And I know many members sent their warmest regards to the Fay family, and I can tell you how deeply appreciative Colleen and her loved ones were to receive that outpouring of wonderful memories and thoughts of former Premier Fay. Can I also acknowledge the passing of Dame Margaret Guilfoyle? Our party isn't recognised adequately for all the advances our women have made, and can I just say how proud we should be, and we are, that the first female in Cabinet was a Liberal, a wonderful Liberal from Victoria. We farewell her, but also acknowledge her enormous contribution, not just to the party and the Parliament, but to Australia, for really advancing the cause of women and for acknowledging the wonderful opportunities provided to women in leadership roles. And people like myself follow in her footsteps, and we do so proudly, and I wanted to acknowledge her. But there's no doubt that the 75th anniversary of our party has brought with it unprecedented times. We never expected to be in this situation. I'm incredibly proud that both at a state level and a national level, in our 75th anniversary, we were able to have Liberal governments who I hope our members feel represents not just the values of our party, but in the main, the values of our community, the values which our community expects us to adhere to, but also the policies our communities expect us to implement to improve their quality of life and equality of opportunity. And as Liberals, we should feel incredibly proud of the legacy our party has left in the last 75 years, and the legacy will leave for future generations. And I don't think I've ever been as proud to be our state's leader or a member of the Liberal Party than I do at this time, when we're working so well together as a team, whether it's within our colleagues at a state parliamentary level or with our federal colleagues in the federal parliament. That's what the community wants from us. They want to know that we're working together well for their interests first and foremost. That's what motivates me and every single one of my team. And please know that as members, we highly value your contribution. We thank you for your support during these difficult times and give you our renewed commitment that as your state government, that as your elected representatives, we will always put our community first, make those decisions right by our community, and in so doing, really keep that important balance of keeping COVID-19 at bay, but also making sure we keep livelihoods at bay. We create jobs, save jobs, and make sure New South Wales continues to be the powerhouse state, continues to lead the nation out of all of our state and territories, and we do so proudly. So, Mr. President, State Director, ministerial and parliamentary colleagues, state and federal, and most importantly to our party members, thank you personally for your support, for your confidence, and please know we'll continue to work hard on your behalf to ensure that the citizens of New South Wales receive the best services, the best quality of life and the best economic circumstances in which to create those opportunities our party is known for providing. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Premier. Can I just say you have our confidence because you deserve it, and you've done an outstanding job and we greatly value it and we thank you for it.